Of course, basically, that is what it is. The president is in a hurry to achieve something. And then you have someone who has become a clog. Get rid of that person and bring in someone that can deliver. Because, no, let's face it, no matter what you do, you can't blame the ministers that did not perform. The people are looking at the president delivering. Let's take the aviation, for instance. The airports, how many airports have been renovated? At the same time, renovation is still going on in almost all the airports across the country. Nobody can say that the aviation minister is not doing something. You know, what in the past, none of those former ministers did not think of putting new faces. They still left Murtala Mohammed Airport has been there since the 70s.
What about...
And nothing new being done. No facelifts and all that. And
okay,
some of these
give
airports, you know, because let's face it, in the world, globally, we are in a global economy where we have a 24-hour economy. In the sense that night is as good as day. But you find that our airports hardly work at night. And these are the things that we're supposed to be doing so that people can travel at night. And because we're in a 24-hour economy, for Nigeria to move forward, we need to begin to key into the 24-hour economy so that night and day, there's no difference.
All right, since we're talking economy, let's also look at the mainstay of our economy, crude oil. 400,000 barrels a day we're said to lose, and then it has affected our budget for this year, such that, I mean, you saw the argument going back and forth between the executive and the legislature, but nothing happened to that ministry. And crude oil theft is still going on.
When it comes to the Minister of Oil and Gas, the mainstay, it's a very touchy, and a very unfortunate incident going on. Because one is that because of the various interests, that ministry is still the way it is. The petroleum industry bill, the PIB bill, is still there. And because of various interests, that bill is not passed. So it's your ability to negotiate. Let them see the big picture. What is happening in that ministry is the selfish interests. They're not looking at the big picture. It's left for the president to begin to do, the salesmanship, to begin to look at, to let people see the bigger picture, rather than focusing on their selfish interests. Now, it has nothing really to do with the minister, herself as not performing. Like I said earlier, there are interests, and there are some. It's just that it's the president that will have the gumption, the courage to call their shots, call their bluff. Sorry, he should call off their bluff and make sure that industry, that the interests of Nigerians in general are served in that ministry. It's not a matter of, there are so many things going on, but there is the interest that is really overshadowing some of those things. And the National Assembly, because of their own interests.
If we could take a look at the list of the ministers that were asked, yes, we've seen education, then national planning also, Minister of State for Defense, Power, Environment, Agriculture, Housing and Urban Development, Science and Tech, and then Foreign Affairs. Let me jump all through to Science and Technology, because some word out there is that, remember some time ago when I think it was NICOMSAT that handled that project for the National Assembly, the House of Reps particularly, when they could not even use the facilities that the ministry or the agency handled to perform their voting functions. And then there are questions about Nigeria's communication satellite. Is it working? What's happening to it? Well, now we know that the Minister of Science and Technology is out. But should we just stop there? Shouldn't we demand answers to some of these questions? Is it really the Ministry of Science and Tech that supervises NICOMSAT and then Nigeria's communication satellites?
Yes, that ministry really has not done Nigeria any good in the sense of deliverables. Because by now, Nigeria, with the quality of minds and brains that we have all over the world, Nigeria shouldn't be lagging behind in terms of technology. And what drives knowledge economy is technology. And there was an incident that happened. I don't know if it was former minister or that the NICOMSAT that was faulty and failed or something happened to it. And rather than looking at what really happened, asking the whys, because whys give you the insight to begin to search for answers. But the minister said, well, the thing has gone bad, that they will call the Chinese to bring another one. And when they bring another one, the same thing that happened will happen again. And that is not the attitude that a government or a minister should have. You begin to, what is happening that people are not asking whys. That's why they're not getting solutions, they're not getting insight. And one good thing about leadership is that your ability to have some insight into certain things that are happening, or certain things that have happened. So in that case, that ministry has not really done much to improve Nigeria's lot opportunities that we have in the area of technological development and all that. Because with the kind of people, quality of brains that we have all over the world, we should be able to have a vision. Where there is no strategy. How do you want, when there's no vision, there can't be any strategy, because it is your strategy that will also make sure that your vision you have for that, the idea you have for that ministry will also, will be achieved. And again, the personal value of the ministers, play a very important role in whether projects are executed or whether performance is achieved or not. The personal values of every minister, is the driving force. If
okay, but there seems to be some sort of confusion here. Some say that NICOMSAT reports to the Ministry of Communications Technology, not necessarily science and technology. And one wonders, there has to be some sort of connection between both ministries. But for now, it's only the Ministry of Science and Technology that the minister is out.
Yes, because one is that ministry, a duplication, because the Constitution says that you have to appoint 40 ministers, each one from every state at least, and all that, leaving the gap. But that is too much. For the size of Nigeria's economy, you can't afford to have 40 ministers, and you have chains of people. So that Ministry of Science and Technology should be merged with Communication and ICT in the first place.
Mr.
So it's a duplication of duties.
Just quickly,
and there's confusion all over the place. Whether NICOMSAT should be communication, yes, and whether it should be science and tech, is either way.
If I may put a word in, Mr. Wednesday,
the Ministry of Science and Technology,
some people will not agree with your analysis this morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Great. Now, some people might not agree with the analysis this morning. I mean, in one breath, you say that, a minister should always have somebody who is shadowing so that in case he leaves, somebody else would have been watching and takes over. It's not good to leave a ministry without any minister. Some people are wondering then what is the role of the permanent secretaries there? Because oftentimes they come and give, the ministers give a political direction to where the administration is looking, but oftentimes it's the permanent secretary who shows the minister around and eventually still gets to do most of the work. Now, some people will not agree with the analysis because now you're saying that we cannot afford 40 ministers. The Constitution does not say that, you should have 40 ministers. The Constitution is talking about, representation from each state, but not necessarily 40 ministers from these states. That is on one hand. And then you're also talking about exonerating the Minister for Petroleum Resources, talking about how, the obstacles in that ministry. And on the other hand, you're lambasting the ousted Minister for Education, saying that, she just didn't handle certain things properly. Meanwhile, there have been issues with ASUU that, or even the Ministry of Education, which it would seem that's what the Needs Assessment Committee, which is chaired by the Governor of Benue State, was meant to address in the very first instance. So, it's not quite consistent for some people this morning. What do you have to say about that? Are we misunderstanding you?
Now, yeah, one is, as the situation as we have it on ground now, that you have a minister and a minister of state. Based on that, I'm not saying that I agree. My position is that we don't need 40 ministers. The permanent secretaries are there. They are the ones that run day-to-day activities of the ministry, of every ministry. So we don't need that size of ministry. Even in other countries that have a bigger economy, a larger economy, I'm not sure that they have such number of ministers. That is my position. That the size of government is too much for our economy to take. But being that as you may, but having a minister and a minister of state is not ideal. That's my position. But where you have such, then that on one hand, where you have a minister and a minister of state, I'm saying if that situation, should exist, now the minister of state should be covered up for in case that the minister is not there. But where you have both, the permanent secretary also should be able to, when you don't have both, but there are some decisions that the permanent secretary cannot just walk up to the president and say, look, this is what is going, and because they have to pass through the minister to get to because that's the structure on ground now. But I'm saying that structure is not the best for Nigeria. So, and you find that some of these ministries, when you collapse them, I'm not exonerating the Minister of Petroleum Resources. I'm not exonerating her. I'm bringing in other factors that could be responsible for her seeming non-performance. And again, don't forget that she's also protecting some interests, the political side of it. And you can't remove politics from some of these things happening, some of these appointments. So she's also representing some interests, and you have to take that into consideration. So there are I'm bringing out other factors that could be responsible for what is happening in that place.
All right, the
so
confirmation
that is just my point.
Okay, just got that. The confirmation is there that the NICOMSAT reports to the Ministry of Communication Technology, not Science and Tech. So for those who may be associating the removal of Science and Tech with NICOMSAT, perhaps not, but there's still so many questions to be asked about this Nigeria's communication satellite. Is it working? Why is it not working? Is NICOMSAT reporting to Nigeria Space Agency, which is the parent body? And so many unanswered questions. But that's where we had to draw the curtains today. Dr. Austin Wise of Pan Atlantic University. Thank you for speaking with us today on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
We're back in just a moment. Join us again.